Hi, I hope you've had a great week. I hope you had a chance to study the tabernacle lesson. If not, you can still download it because this week's lesson really follows on from there. This week we're talking about God guides his people. It's important for our children to realize that God guides them. There's so many people who want to share their opinions with us. And it's important that our children know that they don't just need to follow, they don't need to be blown around by the wind, but that God has a plan for them and God wants to guide them. So we're looking this week at the story of Moses and the children of Israel as they were out in the wilderness. And above the tabernacle, God gave him a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they should look at that all the time, and God would guide them by it and also protect them from it. So we're talking about how God guides his people then and how God still guides us today. So if you haven't already done so, it would be really great if you could go over to the True Way Kids website and download this week's video because it will help you. So it's www.truewaykids.com, and there you can click on God Guides His People lesson. So let's have a walkthrough and I'll give you some tips along the way of how you can help deliver this to your child or children. So right at the start of the lesson this week, we have God Guides His People. That's the first page, a simple picture there of the cloud, layer of Moses. You can print this off just to give some application. On the first page, as always, I've introduced the introduction page. Again, there's a QR code there. So on the QR code, you can click on it. I put a cartoon which I found on YouTube, which explains this week's lesson as well. And there's some songs which you can sing and worship God together with your child. But the main points I want us to deliver, and I put here, so it's taken from Exodus 40, this week's lesson. 4 points. Firstly, God wants to guide his people. God wants to guide us. Secondly, that the Bible is our guide, and I put some verses from Psalms so you can teach your child to realize that as we make decisions, we can turn to the Bible. Then, and thirdly, the important lesson for us to learn is that God doesn't only want to guide us, he doesn't only want to give us directions of where to go, but he goes with us. As the cloud moved, so the children of Israel moved. The idea was to stay near to God. But also on that, the fourth point is that we must keep our eyes focused on Jesus. Now, as the cloud moved, the children of Israel had to be aware of where it was going so they could follow. And so we need to keep our eyes on God. So just below I put some games and some other activities which you can do with your child to help reinforce these 4 important points. Then on the following next 2 pages of this week's lesson, I've included a simple story which you can read to your child. It just retells that passage in a simple child-friendly way for under 5s. It's just a second page of it, and again that might be helpful to you. Then next we have the games and activities which go alongside this week's lesson. So the first game I recommend to play with your child is Follow the Leader. We've all played that game when we were younger. It's a simple, easy game to play with your child. So one person could be the adult to start with, that could be you. You would do some actions, so walk around the room, touching your head, clapping your hands, stamping your feet, and so on. The child must just copy what you do, following you. Then you can take it in turns, let your child or siblings or other children, if you're doing it in church, take the lead, and the other children must copy them. The idea is how we follow the leader. As they follow the cloud, we must follow Jesus. We must be like Jesus. The second game is a campus race. So the idea of this game is that you would put 4 pieces of paper around the room, north, east, south, and west. As you call out one of those directions, the child must run to the right side of the room as quickly as possible. For younger children, you could even use colours or just use one letter, as they may find it a bit easier. And finally, another suggestion I put is to map reading. So you could take your child to a shopping centre or to a local park and find a map there showing the layout of it. And once there, just look with your child, maybe of a playground or a toy shop that they want to go to, or a small cafe, and then work out how to go there. Just to reinforce really how directions work, how we can use the map to help find directions, and how the Bible acts sometimes like a map to us so we know where God wants us to go and what he wants us to do. So following that, I have the 4 worksheets which I've created for this week's lesson. The first one is day or night. On this worksheet, you'll see the 2 tables above, and then below is some boxes which you need to cut off with different activities such as bed, playing with toys, reading a book in bed, and eating ice cream. And below is the sun, moon, stars, and so on. So all your child must do is cut out the pictures below and glue them into the right box, whether it's daytime activity or a nighttime activity. Then reinforce as you're doing this that God guides us, whether it be day or night. Secondly is, the second worksheet is a compass trace. It's a bit hard to see on the video, maybe you see it better there. So all I do is trace around the dotted lines, so the north, east, south and west is the letters, and then there's a compass in the middle. Just draw around it and then colour it in. You can explain what a compass does and how it gives it direction, and how God must be our direction. Then there's a map here of Moses following the fire over the tabernacle. It's just a simple maze. To go through the maze, help Moses to follow it where he's supposed to go. And finally, the fourth worksheet is called Colour and Count. You see some pictures here of fire and of clouds. The children must colour the fire in red, the clouds in blue, then add them up, and at the bottom there's two boxes where they can write the number of how many of each one there is. Again, all these worksheets should reinforce their educational development as well as reinforce the truths in this week's lesson. So this week's craft is, the instructions are there on the paper. I've done it for you. It's a pillar of cloud and fire craft, and again I have a real one here which I'll just get to show you. Here you go. So you can hang it up and spin it around. One side looks like a cloud, and the other side looks like the fire. It's a really easy activity to make. All you need is a kitchen roll, some cotton wool balls, some tissue paper you can scrunch up, a piece of wool, and some glue really. So make two little holes on top of the kitchen roll, thread through wool so you can hang it, then divide it into half. I recommend labeling one half day and one half night, or cloud or fire. Then just put PVA glue on, stick cotton wool balls on one side and crunch up some paper on the other side to make a fire effect. It looks really effective. Timothy really enjoyed doing it. It's very simple just to glue the things on, and it's just a reminder of how God guides us. And the child can hang it anywhere around the house or in a bedroom, anywhere that's useful, anywhere they enjoy. On the next page, as I normally have a colouring page, this week we kind of combined a colouring page and a second craft, so you can print it off here, and it's a bookmark so you can colour it in. And I've got an example here which we made as well. So it says, God guides me by day with the clouds. You can just colour around the outside in blue. And on the other side says, God guides me by night with the fire. So you can colour in the fire and the outside black. Then again, put this bookmark in your child's Bible or somewhere where they'll see it as a reminder of the truth God wants to guide them. Then on the last page, as we normally do, we have some worship songs that go along. So this week is, I've decided to follow Jesus, no turning back. That's who we need to follow. Bible. That's the truth for me, that the Bible is our guide. If we can read it and we can follow, know what God wants us to do, then God will guide us, is the third song. So you can play these in the background, sing them with your child, play them throughout the week, just to reinforce these truths. And there's a prayer time. And below it, you'll notice our next week's lesson will be the 12 spies. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's lesson. I hope it'll be a blessing to you and your child, that you'll be able to explore God together, enjoy Him. Anything else we can do to help make these lessons better for you, please let me know. I will be praying for you this week, that God will really bless you in a special way. So I hope to see you again next week for next week's lesson, but may God bless you this week.